talk about connecting.
That's right.
Looking at you two guys, for any young men especially who are in that middle school, high school age that are going to be watching this and looking at you guys as examples of where they would like to be in their lives. When you look back, share advice, connect with those young men right now and like think back to your younger self. What would you say about the journey to being a college Division I athlete?
I'll start. One thing that I can say worked for me was, I tell a lot of kids whenever their parents or even them ask me is like, what helped you get to where you are? How'd you get to Clemson? How'd you get, successful, just in football or life in general? And one thing that I always pitch to them, I guess you can say, is, it's not really about the things that you do with the people when y'all are supposed to do it. It's about the things that you do when you're not supposed to be doing it.
Come on now.
And so one thing that I tell them to do is every time your team works out, you're not the only one working out. Your teammates working out with you. But what are you going to do to set yourself apart that your teammates aren't doing to, raise you above that level? Every day you're doing something different. Every day you're doing something extra. And soon enough, you're going to look down and you're going to be like, now you're in elite company. And so that's just kind of my 30-second go-to, like, preach, because that's what I live. That's kind of how my parents kind of raised me up. Just, what are you going to do extra? How are you going to set yourself apart?
Shout out to your parents.
Yeah.
Real talk.
And they probably put creatine in his milk.
Nah.
I did just see that on TikTok the other day, though.
No.
He's probably rare, like, in terms of God-given talent.
Was it?
That you see, like, every 10 years.
That's
a guy as big as he is and explosive as he is. I mean, he's got all the tools, and people like him are very rare in the country.
I really did see that on TikTok
Seriously.
the other day. A dad put creatine
They
in his
put
kid's
creatine.
yogurt like every day.
It didn't happen to me.
Whey protein, creatine. I can see Jermaine there
It
putting
was like, wow. But yeah, he
happened to
really
me.
did that. TJ, what you preaching to the sophomore, juniors?
For me, it's more of be you. A lot of times when you get the work in and you get the doing the extra stuff, you try to do it for everybody else or just for the glory of seeking approval from everybody else. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I tell the guys around that age, man, look, just stay down and do what you want to do that makes sense for you. A lot of times people get lost in a recruiting cycle, just getting all the glory, getting all love, getting, you know what I'm saying, all this extra attention when it comes to these different schools that may be false whenever you get on campus. I tell people all the time, man, look through all that and find what suits you and how you want to, go about life. Because at the end of the day, when you're going through this, you want to make sure you're going to a school where you can squeeze the life out of the school instead of the school squeezing the life out of you. I tell parents that all the time, man, just take a seat, back to your kid, let your kid experience all of the visit and the school, because at the end of the day, it's where the kid got to go, not where the parent has to go. You see all the time where parents are the limelight of the visit, having fun, talking to the coaches. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that because they got to feel comfortable too. But make sure your kid is the one soaking up all the information. Make sure they understand what's going on, because, sometimes a kid can get lost, but also just make sure the kid has a good support system around them, of people who tell them the real whenever you don't want to hear it, because as a kid you can get hard-headed, but you always want to have that strong support system.
You two had two different timelines in selecting Clemson, right, as the school that you wanted to go to. What's your number one piece of advice for a young man going through recruiting on finding that place and knowing the right place for you?
I just say go to the place that best fits who you are as a person, as a player, as a man, and just kind of follows the values, that you want to walk into and that you've grown through. And I feel like that's the decision that I made. That's what helped me make my decision. Straight simple like that.
Yeah, really what he said, and I'd say take your time. A lot of times people commit off the highs of a visit. Just really take your time when it comes to analyzing what you want to do as a person and outside of football, because at the end of the day, not everybody's going to go to the league. That's the reality of it. So you got to make sure that school checks off every single box that you may question, from everybody, from the head coach all the way down to the people who cook for you. You know what I'm saying? So it's more of a take your time, analyze all the people you're going to surround yourself with and live with, because at the end of the day, your parents, they're going to drop you off to college and go back home, and you're going to be stuck there for a year at minimum. You know what I'm saying? So just really analyze it and take your time with it, just to figure out people out.
Coach, obviously you're sitting here with 2 current players, a former player yourself, a totally different outlook into really that entire process from recruiting to, now working in the profession. And so I challenge you to think back and what you wish you would have understood maybe differently as a player from a coach's perspective, like now understanding more that dynamic between player and coach, being the coach, and what maybe sometimes coaches were trying to instill in you or share with you that just didn't click the same way that it does for you now, obviously being in that position.
I think, I had a little bit of an advantage. I grew up in a home with a pastor, obviously pastor's wife with my grandmother and grandfather who were married for 67 years.
Congratulations.
And then, I had my mom who was an educator who actually was a coach, my head basketball, women's basketball coach, and as well as a school counselor and a mathematics teacher. And so I had an ear to hear and I listened. I tell kids all the time that, sometimes it's better just to listen to someone else instead of have to go through a lot of things in life to learn the lesson. And so I had an ear to hear. Not always, but the recruiting process was very different back then. I was looking for the things in a school that Clemson, promotes in terms of what we want our players, what's the purpose of our program. That's to graduate our players, equip them with tools for life, to have a great college experience, and to win a championship. That's what I chose Clemson for 24, 25 years ago. And so that's what I was looking for at the time. And, here we are, 25 years later, and I'm here, and that's the purpose of our program. And so, for the recruiting process, it wasn't a lot of glitz and glamour. I mean, there was no social media. I think I might have had a pager. I didn't even have a cell phone, so there was no internet. And
do y'all know what a pager is?
You just showed up.
I could probably make it really good, I guess.
I've seen it from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will Smith used to have a pager on his hip.
Got it. He got it
when a female called him or something like that.
He got it.
Something like that.
Yeah. Something like that. Well, it's not always a female. People can just call you. Anyways, but anyways, I just, I was very focused as a student athlete in high school. I wasn't into there were not a lot of distractions. I live in a really small town. I had about 62 people in my graduation class. I played single A, double A football. And it was church, sports, work, and that was my life. Like I had no desire to trying to be in the parties and clubs and things that kids can get into, and it just wasn't a lot happening in Toombs County, and so I didn't have a lot of distractions at the time, and so I listened a lot and I trusted my coaches. Although I thought I was going to be the next Michael Jordan, when I actually graduated from high school, I was about 200 pounds. By the time I arrived in Clemson in August, I was 218 pounds. And so I thought, I came to Clemson, a lot of people don't know this, is because I was going to be able to play on the basketball team as well, right? And so that was a part of the deal. But, Coach West ends up getting fired after my redshirt freshman year, and, Tommy Bowden comes in. And so, rules can change. It's a different journey now. And so I didn't have an opportunity to, and as well as I tore my Achilles. And so when my Achilles snapped, I knew that, that dream was gone. And then I had another reminder when I was playing for the Browns. I had an opportunity to go to LeBron James' house and was doing some backyard ball. And after that experience, I was like, you're an idiot to think that you were going to be like a professional basketball player. That was like, oh yeah, very humbling. And it was just people were jumping all over the place, and I couldn't even get nowhere near high as everybody. It was just embarrassing. So I was like, what was I thinking? But it was just, there were not a lot of distractions. There was no Instagram, no Twitter, no nothing. And so my focus was different, back then. And so, but now, I mean, in today's world, I mean, there's tons of distractions, you know,
Yeah.
for kids, you know.